All right, so today we're talking about Don't Wait, Hydrate. My name is Abby Horton, and it's great to be with you all today. I'm a registered nurse and a certified health and life coach, a Wellbeing ambassador, and your wellness class educator. My email is abby.horton@ua.edu. And if you have any questions or feedback or need anything, please feel free to reach out. I know sometimes we have questions and those don't come up until later, but we will have time at the end for Q&A. So stay tuned for that. So we also have some upcoming events. We have another health screening this summer. We're so glad to be able to offer those. We've had 3, and this will be our 4th and final one until the fall. And so it'll be at the Northeast Medical Building on July 22nd. And then the first one of fall will be at the Capitol Hall on August 30th. And you can go through mybama.ua.edu to sign up on the wellness portal. If you can't find the wellness portal, it's pretty easy to find now, but just type in the search box and you can get that pulled right up. So that's great. And then wellness classes that we have coming up, Power of Posture, which will be in person, Your Health After 40, which I'll be teaching for you on August 3rd, and then Successfully Navigating Menopause on August 11th. And then upcoming programs, we have the Self-Care Summer Challenge that starts July 18th, so next Monday. And then fall programs will be announced soon, and we're really excited about that. All of our information can be found on the wellness.ua.edu site. And also, please make sure that you signed up for the newsletter, because the Wellness Work-Life Office does a wonderful job of getting some great information out to you through that newsletter. And yes, Miranda is on the call today, and she's popped in a message about please sharing your information. So that's great. All right, so let's go through our information today. So our body is composed of about 75% of our weight with water. And so when we think about getting hydrated, we know that that's going to affect every part and function and body system that we have, because so much of our body is water. And so if we're not drinking enough water, we are going to be dehydrated, but we also are going to have things like brain fog and fatigue, and we're not going to recover from, just daily activities or exercise as well. We're going to be a little bit slower because we're really running low on everything that we need to have good energy and to take care of our bodies well. So this image, I'm a very visual person, so I think this image is a helpful visualization of how much water we are in terms of our composition and how much water we need to feel good, which is going to vary from person to person and day to day. So that is what I want to talk to you about, is how can we feel our best while making sure that we're staying hydrated during these hot summer months, but also thinking about that year round, because we can get dehydrated during the winter as well. So with water, what can water do for you? It's needed by the brain to help with the manufacturing of hormones and neurotransmitters. It helps regulate our body temperature, so with things like sweating and respiration. So on days where I teach, I am going to need more water because my respirations are going to increase as I'm talking and as I'm teaching. So on a day where I'm teaching a 4-hour lecture at the nursing school, then I'm going to need more water than a day where I'm just doing a 1-hour class with all of you and I'm just mainly doing office work. So every day is going to be a little different. If I work out today, then I'm going to need more water than I would if I was having a day where I was just simply, doing my activities of daily living and maybe just walking to and from point A to point B. So think about that as you think about how much water you typically take in every day. Water also acts as a shock absorber for the brain and spinal cord, so we know that that's really important. It helps convert our food that's needed for digestion and survival. So if we're taking in nutrients and things, but we don't have enough water on board, oftentimes we can see that show up as just constipation and not feeling great. We can have a lot of stomach aches and things simply because we don't have enough water on board. It helps deliver oxygen to the entire body. Water is the major component of all of our body parts. Like I mentioned, it helps lubricate our joints. And so if you're having joint pain or muscle pain, that could be from dehydration. Flushes the body waste and mainly helps in the composition of urine. allows the body cells to grow, reproduce, and survive, keeps your mucous membranes moist. So in your mouth, if you're feeling like you have cotton mouth or dry mouth, it may be that you're dehydrated. And it helps with digestion in the form of forming saliva. So there are so many things that the water is used for in our body, and these are just really the highlights of that. So dehydration is really when the water is leaving the body faster than what you're taking in. And so during heat advisories, during hot summer months in Alabama, that's definitely something to think about, because usually by the time you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. And a lot of times we don't realize that. So if you're really feeling thirsty, it's going to be hard for you to catch up because you're probably already at least slightly dehydrated. The body is dynamic and it's always changing. And so, like I was mentioning before, day to day, your needs for water are going to change. So you can't just have this perfect formula of I'm going to drink 8-ounce glasses of water or 64 ounces of water a day, and that's good. That's all I need, because you might need more if you're going to be really physically active or outdoors. And I want to mention that the 8-ounce glasses of water, so that's 64 ounces, is just the minimum that you need. That is not the maximum amount of water that you need. And so if you think about having the range, it's usually 4 to 8 ounces of water an hour while awake. So we usually say 16 hours if you're getting 8 hours of sleep, which is kind of the gold standard. So then that would mean that if you're drinking 8 to 12 ounces of water an hour for 16 hours, that's going to be about 64 ounces to 128, which is a gallon of water a day. And so you can overhydrate. So I want you to think about how you feel when you drink water. So I want you to really think about tracking your water intake every day, along with the type of day that you're having, especially if it varies a good bit, so that you know, okay, on these types of days, I feel my best when I drink X amount of water. And on these days, I feel best when I drink this amount of water. And then you can kind of figure out your range. Is like, I need at least this amount to feel good on most days. And if I drink too much water, then I don't feel great either. And so definitely don't overhydrate. You're going to want to look at your urine color, which we're going to talk about. And, if you overhydrate, then you're losing really good and valuable nutrients and minerals and electrolytes. And so you're flushing those out if you're overhydrating, and that's not good either. And so we really want to look at all of those things. How do I feel? What am I doing today? What does my urine look like to know, okay, are we hydrated well enough? So with the body, really losing water, we breathe and humidify our air and leaves the body. So we have to sweat to cool the body, and then we urinate or have bowel movements to get rid of that body waste or those toxins. And so that is kind of the main function of the body, is to just regulate itself, to maintain that homeostasis that we talk about. So in a normal day, a person needs to drink a significant amount of water to replace this routine loss. And again, that's going to look different for everyone on the call. So the body needs water to function, and dehydration occurs when the water intake, like I said, is less than the water loss. And so symptoms range from mild dehydration to life-threatening symptoms, particularly during the heat advisories that we've had recently. And so prevention is definitely the most important step. You want to make sure that you don't get to the point that you're super thirsty, because like I said, you're already in those mild forms of dehydration, and it can be hard to drink enough fluids to then recover from that. So some folks who have certain autoimmune conditions, certain heart conditions, or circulatory conditions can get to the point that they actually need IV hydration to be able to replenish that. Or people who work outdoors who are at risk for heat stroke or heat intolerance, those folks could need IV hydration. We're really fortunate to have some of those spray steaming clinics in the Tuscaloosa area where you can go and get an IV of normal saline to replenish that. And that's just basically sterilized salt water. And that really can help because, like I said, electrolytes are going to be lost when we lose this water. But in addition to those who work outdoors and people who have health conditions, we also have people like the elderly and young people who are especially susceptible to dehydration just because of the way that their body functions. And so we want to make sure that we're really paying attention if we're in those vulnerable groups, or if we have loved ones who are in those vulnerable groups. So personal risk factors, things like your age, your weight, your personal fitness level, and just your health level in general, any past heart-related illnesses or medical conditions, heat-related illnesses, diabetes, your diet, if you have a lot of sugary drinks that you drink, so Cokes, but also things like Gatorade and Powerade. Those have a lot of added sugars and chemicals and additives in those. And so it's important for you to think about, when we see a Gatorade or a Powerade, we have been so conditioned to think that that's a healthy choice. And it's not the healthiest choice. It might be healthier than a Coke, but it's not the healthiest choice that you can do. And so you don't want to live off Gatorades, Powerades, and things like that if that's what you're using to replenish or rehydrate after working out or being outside. Now, certainly if you're feeling really sick and that's all that you've got, then use what you've got. But if you want to make a healthier choice, I can offer you some examples later on of what you can do instead. Heavy and spicy foods can also dehydrate you, and then of course alcohol use. And so you want to make sure that for every alcoholic drink that you're drinking, 6 to 8 ounces of water per drink. And that guideline is going to vary. You're going to see a lot of different experts tell you a different amount, but I would say at least a 1-to-1 ratio. So for every alcoholic drink that you have, you want to at least have a glass of water. And so about 75% of Americans are considered to be dehydrated. And I would say that's probably more than that, but that is a conservative estimate. Gatorade Zero. We can talk about Gatorade Zero. I am not a fan of Gatorade and Powerade. I think it served a really good purpose, but I think we just have more, more options now, healthier options. And so I'll share those with y'all. I'd love to know what hydration stations in Tuscaloosa you recommend. Sure, we have one, and I'm not affiliated at all, but we have one called Hydrate, and it is downtown near Government Plaza. And I have a heart condition. I have mitral valve prolapse, and I often get very dehydrated, especially if I have a busy life. No matter how much I hydrate, sometimes just, it's the perfect storm, and I just can't get enough liquid in, just by drinking it. And so I oftentimes, maybe once every couple of months, sometimes if I'm feeling, really symptomatic with my heart condition, once a month, I'll go in and get just a half a bag of fluids for me. And they have practitioners there who do an intake assessment. They have nurses and nurse practitioners and doctors, and they decide what's right for you. And so they work with you to determine what fluids you need. And so because I'm a nurse and because I've done this, many times, I kind of know what I need, and I can request, just a half a bag of fluids, and that works great for me because I don't want to do too much in terms of fluids because it will then activate some of my symptoms with my heart murmur. But they work with you to do that and go through that whole medical process with you. So that may be one to try, and certainly always reach out to your healthcare provider because what we're doing here today is just for educational purposes, and that's our disclaimer that we're not providing any medical advice to you, but that's something that is an option in Tuscaloosa for you to consider. So with that being said, most Americans are dehydrated. What do we do? And I say start small. So if you're not drinking any water at all, then you just want to add in a glass of water. Start with 1 glass of water today, get an 8-ounce glass of water, go get a water bottle out of the nearest vending machine, drink that today, and then keep building up until you notice that you're starting to feel better. People who are wanting to lose weight, people who are wanting to do, fitness goals, and people who are just wanting to feel better in general, to sleep better, to feel less fatigued, to have less brain fog. If you just start with increasing your water intake, if you're not drinking enough water already, that is going to dramatically improve your symptoms and your weight loss and your fitness. And you're going to be so shocked and surprised by it, because I was when I started my health and fitness journey in 2018. If you had told me that just drinking more water would have helped that, I would have been surprised, but it did help tremendously. You also want to think about sources of clean water. So not just getting tap water, and not always drinking out of plastic bottles because that can leach into your water. But we're just talking about doing the next best thing. And so if you're not drinking any water, drinking a bottle of water from the vending machine is going to be better than that Coke. And so we're just trying to do, incrementally better as we add in healthy life choices. So most heat illnesses are caused by dehydration. And here's the thing. If you're going to be out in the heat, if you work outside in the heat, if you're going to be outside enjoying, the lake or the pool or something this weekend, then you need to pregame. You need to pre-hydrate before you go out there. If you wait until you're outside to start drinking water, you're already going to be behind. So go ahead and drink 8 or 16 or how many ever ounces work best for you. But I would say at least 1 to 2 glasses of water before you leave the house and get out in the heat, and then continue to drink at least every hour, so that you know that you're not getting super behind in your hydration. A person can sweat about 1 liter of water and sweat and fluid out an hour with heavy exertion. So if you're working outside, that's certainly going to be the case. And most people who are exposed to hot conditions drink less fluid than they need. And so their thirst response really doesn't adequately let them know that they're behind. And so they lag in that actual level of dehydration. So that's why it's so important to pre-hydrate before you go outside. And then, like I said earlier, by the time a person's thirsty, you're probably already 2 to 3% dehydrated. And then you're going to continually add to that level of dehydration as you go throughout the day. So super important to keep a check on that. How about loaded teas like North River Nutrition? Yes, we can talk about that. I get those a lot. And so, so that I don't forget, I'll just go ahead and mention that. So with the loaded teas, they can have things, it depends on if you're getting the beauty drink or if you're getting the loaded tea. There's 2 options. There's 2 different menus at places like the nutrition stores in towns. Those are Herbalife Nutrition, and Herbalife has a site that you can go to get more of the factual information. But you also, and I frequent the one that you mentioned, Carmen, you can also ask the employees there and they can tell you the breakdown. You want to make sure, because they can have some sugar substitutes, so that you're not sensitive to those. So that's one caution. There's a lot of caffeine in there. And so I just told you I have a heart condition and I'm drinking way too much caffeine when I get one of those drinks. So if you're sensitive to caffeine, if you have any kind of anxiety, if you have heart conditions like I do, there's probably, healthier options because of the caffeine that's there. But do I enjoy them? I really do. In terms of hydration, they do have some things like liquid H3O that can be added to the drinks, but those are not in most of the drinks without you asking for them. So when you go in, you need to ask if they can add in the H3O or the electrolytes and the hydration components. Because those drinks alone are probably not going to have that if you don't ask for them to add it. Another good trick too is to drink a little bit of your drink and then actually add water to it to dilute it. So what I do is when I get a drink from there, I actually will have another cup and I'll, pour half of the drink out into another cup. And then I'll put water in the original cup that I get from them to dilute it a little bit. And then I can sip on that along with my bottle of water. I'll fill up my hydro flask, which is 32 ounces, and I'll refill it 2 or 3 times a day. And then I'll also have my loaded tea that I've diluted throughout the day. So I'm not getting as much of a caffeine hit right then. So definitely look at that kind of thing if you're interested in those kinds of drinks. So same thing with Spark. Spark from Avocare, you've got things like liquid IV, with being sold at Walmart, local, CVS, Walgreens, pharmacies, Target even. And I used to, when I taught this class last summer, I recommended the liquid IV as the substitute. And I've actually found a healthier option because we're always, myself included, we're always learning and growing and picking better, healthier options. I would feel really kind of what I call blood sugary. I would feel like my blood sugar was just going kind of wild after I would drink a liquid IV. And it almost tasted too sweet to me. And I love sweet things. And so what I learned this past year in continuing to learn and grow in this is that it has 3 forms of sugar in it. And, you don't think about that. And they are really market those liquid IV packets to nurses. And so that's how I really learned about it to begin with. And it's all over Instagram. It's very popular to share. And so, like we all do, I bought it and didn't really look at the label. But then when I noticed my blood sugar felt like it was just kind of being really reactive to it and not feeling great after drinking it, then I looked and saw that it has 3 forms of sugar. And so that's something to consider, is looking at the labels and making sure there's not something that you're sensitive to. And even if someone says something's healthy, if you don't feel great after you drink it, then try something else, because it's probably something your body just doesn't respond well to. What's your view on sugar-free additives to water, like Crystal Light? Again, Crystal Light, I'm not a fan of that because I think there are healthier options, but I think Crystal Light is healthier than Cokes and other drinks that you could drink. And so I think you just have to continually, make improvements as you learn and grow. Things like stevia and Splenda are going to be better options than regular sugar for a lot of people. It's going to be better than things like aspartame. Certainly you want to avoid aspartame that comes in things like diet drinks. But I'm going to share some things that don't have any additives that you might like instead. All right, great questions, y'all. So medical causes of dehydration, things like diabetes, certainly because you have so much sugar on board, water gets sent to the body in different places where it's needed most. And so if you take in a lot of excess sugar, if you go and grab a donut this afternoon, you're going to need to drink more water because your blood sugar is going to be elevated. And that water is used to help get that blood sugar down. And so you want to think about that. Of course, if you have anything like an illness, a GI bug, vomiting, diarrhea, burns, if you go out to the lake or pool or the backyard this weekend and you get a sunburn, you're going to need more water. Heat stroke and heat exhaustion are all times where dehydration can be difficult and you may need medical intervention. So the sweat that your body uses, we often don't like to talk about sweat. We don't like to sweat. So people will get things like Botox injections under their arms, or they will, have other things like really, clinical grade, deodorants and antiperspirants to prevent sweating, or we'll just avoid things like being outdoors or exercising where we would have intense sweating. And our bodies are really designed to sweat. We need to sweat every day. And it's not something that is, desirable to prevent, because if we prevent sweating, then we're keeping toxins out in our bodies that are designed to be sweated out. And so our skin is our largest body organ, and it is the best way to get toxins and to get things out of our body that don't need to be there any longer. So our kidneys definitely help with that, our livers help with that, but our skin is going to be one of the best ways. So when you sweat, it's important that once you get out of that environment, whether it's a sauna, whether it's being outdoors, whether it's intentionally exercising and sweating, make sure that you change out of those clothes and make sure you take a cooler shower, not only to lower your body temperature back to a good place, so that you're not overheated for a long period of time, but also to get the sweat off of your skin. Because if you exercise, because if you go outside and you keep those sweaty clothes on, or you don't wash the sweat off of your skin, your body is going to reabsorb all of the good toxins that you just sweated out. And that actually can make you feel bad. And so you want to think about that. Depending on the weather conditions, you want to make sure that you really think about having water with you at all times and drinking it if you're walking or exercising. A brisk walk will generate up to 16 ounces of sweat. So that's 1 pound of water or sweat just from walking outside. So things to consider as you kind of prepare for the rest of this hot season in Alabama. So the skin really does help play that role of fluid and temperature regulation, but also the toxins that I mentioned. If the skin gets injured, like with sunburns, or if you, have any kind of, burn damage to your skin, or, open spots on your skin, maybe you have sores or rashes or things, your skin can really tell you a lot about your health. And so that may be something that you want to consider. If you have things like psoriasis or eczema, those are inflammatory skin conditions or diseases of the skin, and that can result in fluid loss. So protecting your skin is very important. Now, I love the sun, and I think the sun has a really important role in our health. And so I'm not one who is afraid of the sun, but you have to be really smart about being outdoors. So anytime from about 10 a.m. to about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you want to be extra cautious, because that's going to be when you get more of those UVA and UVB rays, and that can be very damaging to your skin. wearing a healthy sunscreen, so a sunscreen that is not going to have all of those extra additives and preservatives in them. You want to make sure that it's a clean sunscreen, and you can go to the Environmental Working Group website and find those just by putting in sunscreen and doing a search. And they use a red, yellow, and green, like a stoplight system. So the ones in the green are going to be a 1 or 2 rating for safety. The ones in yellow are going to be in that middle range. And then around 8, 9, and 10, that's going to be in your red range where you want to avoid those. And so you want to look for a sunscreen that usually has zinc. It's going to be that thicker, very white, kind of sticky, gooey, thick substance that goes on your skin. That's going to be the best for you in terms of sunscreen. Obviously, a reef-friendly, coral reef-friendly sunscreen is probably going to be the most friendly for your body as well, because if we're wearing sunscreen and we're out in the ocean, even in the pool, it can affect the chemicals. But if you're out in the ocean or you're out in a fresh body of water, that sunscreen, because of those chemicals in the air, can actually change and affect the wildlife and the actual vegetation in that water. And so that's important to think about, because if it's affecting them, it's affecting us. Hats, make sure that it covers your neck and the tops and backs of your ears, because those are very sensitive places. The back of the neck, the tops of the ears, and the nose are going to be the things that are most prominent that can get a lot of sun and you don't think about it. And then protective clothing, even protective swimwear, can have SPF protection built in, and that's an important component too. So medications that increase dehydration, if you're on any of these medications, particularly diuretics or high blood pressure medications, those actually can make you sun sensitive. So if you see photosensitive on the medication label, just know that you're going to be at a higher risk for burning. Things like lisinopril, hydrochlorothiazide, which are commonly used for diuretics and high blood pressure, are 2 that come to mind that many people are on, that will make you photosensitive, and it will increase your burns dramatically. So definitely make sure that you check your labels for your medications, but know that these others do as well. And part of it is that these medications also are very dehydrating in and of themselves. So when you're taking an allergy or cold medication, or you're taking something like a diuretic, you're actually getting rid of a lot of your water, but you're also getting rid of a lot of your minerals, electrolytes, and things like that. And so that can also cause issues with the sunburns indirectly, because you just have less water on board. So signs of dehydration are things like extreme thirst, your skin may be dry, your eyes may be dry, you may have muscle cramps or heart palpitations. We often forget that our heart is just a fancy muscle. So if we're having leg cramps, we're probably having some issues with our heart too. It can actually be having some muscle, spasms as well. So think about that. Even if you don't have a heart condition, our heart can be impacted. Fever and chills, food cravings, especially if it's something that's really salty, headaches, nausea, vomiting, fatigue or sleepiness, dry mouth, bad breath, lightheadedness, and then decreased output of your urine or a darker colored urine, which I'm going to show you a chart. So this chart here lets you kind of see where you need to be in terms of your urine color. So make sure that you're looking at your urine color every time you go to the restroom. The darker color, the more likely you are dehydrated. So this dark amber color is going to be likely that you're dehydrated, maybe seriously dehydrated. It doesn't mean that you are. You could be taking a medication that colors your urine, but you want to definitely keep this in mind as you're looking at your urine color. And you don't want to have just completely clear urine. Okay, so when you go to the restroom, if you can't tell the difference between just the regular toilet water and your urine after you use the restroom, then it may be that you're overhydrated. And one thing I want to note is that you have to remember, if you're just looking at the color in the toilet and you're not actually collecting the urine in some way, and if you want to really do this, you can just get, a clear plastic cup and use it. Just like a clear plastic drinking cup that you would dispose of, and actually use that to collect the urine, because reminding yourself when you go to look that toilet water is actually going to dilute the urine. So for whatever color it is, it's probably being diluted. So it's probably a little bit darker than what you're actually seeing. So that's important to know. And so you're wanting your urine to be this pale yellow straw color. And, if you're getting into the amber or orange color, then that's the time that you need to really, think about calling your doctor or healthcare provider and asking them for some advice. So this is another example. So this transparent or clear urine color is going to be that you're overhydrated and you need to hold off on the water a little bit. You're looking for that pale yellow or pale lemonade color. And this is more of the optimal hydration. Again, it can only tell you so much because you're only just looking at the color, but you're probably, in a good position here. This light color that they call light beer is that you're still hydrated, but you may need to probably drink a little bit more water. The amber or the burnt orange is going to be where you're really needing to, consider calling someone or drinking more water, electrolytes, things like that. So hopefully this gives you a good visual. You would be surprised at how many folks think that you need to have this transparent color, that it needs to be clear when you use the restroom. And so that's something to really share because, again, you're probably depleted of your electrolytes and minerals if you're that clear. So how is dehydration corrected? Things like fluid replacements, water, clear liquids, popsicles, especially if you've got children or older adults. I love watermelon. So watermelon with some Celtic sea salt or some Himalayan pink salt. I think that's really helpful. When you're using salt, we think about salt as being bad for you. We like to moralize things and say, oh, this is good, or oh, this is bad. Well, most things are pretty neutral. Table salt has its place, and if you're at risk for, thyroid issues or goiters or things like that, then you may need the iodine fortified table salt. But when I'm talking about salt, what I prefer people to use if there's, no contraindications for it is Himalayan pink salt, or even better, Celtic sea salt, because Celtic sea salt has 66 trace minerals that help with your electrolyte balance. And then other replacement fluids that contain electrolytes. And so, people usually ask me about Pedialyte. Again, if your pediatrician or your doctor has told you to use Pedialyte and your child is sick and that's all they'll drink and they'll take, then use the advice that your practitioner has given you, because again, you don't want them to get dehydrated, especially children and older folks or people who are vulnerable with a lifelong condition. That's always going to be the number one thing is, are they still drinking? It's okay if they don't eat as much, but if they're not drinking, that's a concern. And that's something that really needs to be brought to a provider's attention. But even for us adults who are healthy and don't have any other pre-existing conditions, popsicles, watermelon, other fruit that has a lot of water content, lettuce, things like that, those are going to be great options to get extra water in. There's something in the chat. Let me go look. Alkaline versus electrolyte water. Yeah, so I prefer to filter water and add electrolytes to it versus buying plastic bottles of water with electrolytes. So like, I'm not going to, advocate that you go get a smart water or something like that. I prefer filtered water in something like a hydro flask with an electrolyte packet that you add. And then alkaline water has been shown to be very beneficial. There's still more research that needs to be done in terms of, seeing about, how alkaline water affects our body. But in the naturopathic world, they're definitely going to advocate that you get that. And again, not affiliated, but Purify You has alkaline water that they really feel is healthy and beneficial. And the owner of that company has her naturopathic doctorate. From my understanding, that's her educational background, and they do offer it. I know there are other options for alkaline water too. I think it tastes great. I think it's extra filtered, so that's never a bad thing, because we have so many toxins in our water system, especially through the city municipalities. Most city municipalities can't filter out all of the bacteria, viruses, medications that are in the water just from the ground runoff. So I think filtered water is great, and alkaline, if that works for you and there's no contraindications, I think that's great. So 8 to 10 glasses of water, or we usually say about half of your body weight in ounces of water a day. So if you weigh 200 pounds, then that would be about 100 ounces of water a day. But again, usually not more than 128. And most people can't get to 128 without feeling overhydrated. Avoid those sports drinks and energy drinks. Y'all, the energy drinks that you can get, all of the ones that have the extra caffeine and that come in the cans, those are not great for your health. Not only because of the caffeine, but also it really does, a lot on your heart, even if you don't have a heart condition. We're just not made to drink that kind of drink. And having it be in a can, the aluminum in the cans have been shown to really leach out the calcium in our bones. And so try to avoid things in aluminum cans if at all possible. And sometimes people think that means just don't drink out of the can, but the plastic leaches into the water in plastic bottles, the aluminum and other metals and the cans leach into it. So doesn't mean just like pour it out and drink it in a glass. I've had some folks that were confused about that in the past. It just means avoid anything that's packaged in plastic or aluminum. Now, will you see me drink out of an aluminum can, or will you see me drink out of a plastic water bottle? Absolutely. So if you see me around town, you will occasionally see that, because sometimes it's just the convenience factor. But is that the healthiest? No, it isn't. So think about that. Alcohol consumption, if you're dehydrated, definitely avoid that. Drink the 1-to-1 ratio at least. If you're outside and it's really hot, especially. So when you order your alcoholic drink, your cocktail, your beer, your wine, whatever it is, make sure you also order a glass of water to go with it so they can be delivered at the same time and you can sip on both. The caffeinated drinks, things like coffee and Cokes and colas and even teas, things like just regular sweet or unsweet tea are very dehydrating because tea is a diuretic. And so that's something to consider. And you're going to go to the restroom faster with those extra caffeinated or diuretic type beverages. Plan ahead, like I said, if you're going to be outdoors, always have a water bottle with you on hand, because that just makes it easy to drink. And on campus, we have all of the water bottle refill stations, which is a great benefit to us. So that's something that you can take advantage of. Go find your nearest water bottle refilling station. And then when temperatures are high or things are just, unusual for your routine, you want to make sure that you avoid being outside during those hot weather days, and look for the heat advisory so that if you're going to be outdoors, maybe you need a neck fan that goes around your neck. Maybe you need some of the cooling rags that you can get to wear and put on your neck. If you do get overly hot, if you run water over your wrists, so you can go to the restroom and run cold water over your wrists and then put a cold cloth or maybe a paper towel that's wet around your neck, that can give you a little bit of relief until you can get, some more help or get in the cool and cool off and get some water in you. All right, so drink early and often. Like I said, the sun is the hottest and you're getting the most UVA and UVB exposure between 10 and 2. There's a 2B mindset. It's a nutrition program through Beachbody that says water first and veggies most. And vegetables and fruits definitely have different water content. So you can do a Google search and figure out which veggies and which fruits have the most water content that you enjoy, and then add those into your diet. Check your urine color to monitor your hydration status. Check your symptoms, how your body feels, and track your water. You can do that on the back of a piece of scrap paper. You can do that in the Notes app on your phone, or you can get a fancy app to track it. I always tell people to make it as easy and as free as possible, because anything that's expensive or hard to do, you're not going to maintain that. Preventing dehydration, like I mentioned, is the key, and rewarding yourself for staying hydrated. So, if you love Cokes, and I love Coke, that's something that I've always enjoyed, but I know it's not healthy for me. If I'm going to get a Coke or a coffee, then I'm also going to make sure that I drink water with that. So I tell people, every time you go refill your coffee cup, go and refill your water bottle and make sure that you're having that balance. Some other hydration tips are to make sure you set a timer. If it's hard for you to get the water in, you can use the app. Habit stack. So every time you sit down at your desk, make sure your water bottle's full, or every time you get that coffee, make sure your water bottle's full. Maybe take a sip every time you're watching a commercial on TV, if you still watch commercials. Probably most of us have streaming services and don't watch a lot of commercials, but you can build something else in. Take your water bottle with you wherever you go, and then make it fun. So add in things like lime or lemon. Mint is always a good one because they usually have some detox properties. Strawberries, strawberry, lime, and mint is a favorite for me, but make your water fun. Soft drinks, it can be hard to ditch and switch, but if you go cold turkey, I think that can help a lot of people. Sometimes people need to wean off Cokes. Sometimes people just need to rip the Band-Aid off and stop drinking them altogether. But just, make sure that if you are drinking soft drinks or coffees or teas, that you're doing it, if you have a lot of sugar in those drinks, do it when you're eating. That is easier because if you're drinking soft drinks or sugary drinks throughout the day, your blood sugar in your body will do better if you drink those with food. So if you're going to try to limit your Cokes and caffeine, then have your Coke with lunch or have your Coke with dinner. Lunch would be more ideal, so you're not getting that caffeine later in the day and it affects your sleep. But, eliminate the ones where you're just having a Coke by itself first, because then your blood sugar in your body are not going to be as symptomatic usually, because you've got some food on board to kind of balance out that blood sugar, hopefully some good fat and some good protein so that you're not getting those big spikes. I hope that helps. When my doctor was helping me wean off Cokes, that was his advice and it was really helpful. So these are my personal favorites. This is the Hydro Flask. I have one of these in the 32 ounce, and they are pricey, but they hold up well. They will dent if you drop them, although I've dropped mine twice and I have not dented it. I feel very fortunate because they do dent fairly easily. You can make them fun and put stickers on them like our college students do, but you can just use them plain. They wash really easily. The only con is that they're a little pricier. They're around $40 to $50. You can get them at some retailers in town, and Amana Grocery has some, but you can get them on Amazon. It's Amazon Prime this week. So I think yesterday and today, it still has some Amazon Prime prices. And so the Hydro Flask are on sale right now. Again, not affiliated, but who doesn't like to save money? And then this LMNT is a drink that does not have any sugar. So it doesn't have any added sugar. It has 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. These are sold online, over the counter. So again, if you have a condition that you're concerned about the sodium, maybe you have high blood pressure, maybe you have a heart condition, maybe you have something else going on, it never hurts to ask your healthcare provider if this would be okay for you. So you can go to their website, just search LMNT, electrolyte packets, get that information and make sure that it's going to be a healthy option for you. So these are the ones that I enjoy. They do have sample packets that you can buy so that you can get a couple of different flavors to try out and see if you like them. I've tried the raspberry, the citrus, and the orange, and those are all really good. Those come in a sample packet. I'm waiting on my order right now because watermelon is my favorite flavor. And so I ordered watermelon. I hope that it's as good as the others. But those are very, very good. I like Avocare Spark as well. Not as a clean product as the LMNT, but you can find it in, I'm sure a neighbor probably sells it, or there's some chiropractic offices in town that has it in stock. And orange is my favorite, Avocare Spark, and it does have a little caffeine. What I love about this, the LMNT, is it's just electrolytes. There's no added sugar, there's no added caffeine, and that's always going to be a healthier option. So add some filtered water to your bottle. It usually says 8 to 16 ounces for these packets, although you can always dilute it more. It doesn't hurt anything. And then just, this is just a little packet that you can open up and then put it in your water bottle, give it a good shake, and you're ready to go. Love this particular brand. I don't know how to pronounce that, but I have seen those and I love that too. I actually have the Hydro Flask where I love that their lids are interchangeable. So I don't like to drink out of a bottle that has a built-in straw like this. So mine is just plain. And then if I need a straw, I can use one, but I just sip it out of the bottle. And so I think that brand has the built-in bottle straw like that, and so that's probably why it's not my favorite, but I have seen those and they're all over Instagram. A lot of Instagram influencers love them. Thanks for sharing that. All right, so a 30-day water challenge. think about adding in a challenge. I think we all enjoy being competitive, at least sometimes with ourselves, and having a challenge to get us started with water intake being an important part of our health can be really inspiring and motivating for us. So for the next 30 days, think about drinking more water. After you wake up, have a glass. 30 minutes before you eat your breakfast is a good time to have it, as long as you're not having digestion issues, because water can dilute temporarily your stomach acid. So if you have issues with digestion, you may want to hold off on drinking the water before meals. But after breakfast, before lunch, after lunch, afternoon. So they're talking about taking a tea break, which I love that practice of having a little afternoon snack around 3. Your cortisol levels naturally kind of spike and your blood sugar is kind of wonky after lunch. And so around 3 p.m. is when most of us don't feel great and we still have a couple more hours to work. And so having a little built-in snack tea break at 3 o'clock is a good thing to help your mind and your body. 30 minutes before dinner, having some water, and then before going to bed, as long as you're not going to be up all night. You usually want to stop drinking water a couple of hours, in terms of like drinking for your challenge, a couple hours before bed, so that you're not staying up all night going to the restroom. So that is the information that I have for y'all. It's one of our shorter presentations, but I love that we have the opportunity to have some question and answer time. We would love for you to follow us on all of our social media sites. Miranda, who's on the call, and Ashley and Carolyn are the wellness work-life team. They do a phenomenal job. Sometimes they're behind the scenes and sometimes they're front and center, but I always like to give them a shout out, and they manage all of this content for our office. So the website, Facebook, Instagram, and then we have blog articles. For almost every class I teach, there's a blog, so you can go there for more information. You also can go to the wellness.ua.edu website for archived webinars. So previous talks that I've done have all been recorded and converted into YouTube videos, and so you can share those out. You can watch as many as you like. You only get your Wellbama class credit for attending a live class, but you can always go back to that archived information. And then I'll leave this here for you with my contact information while we look and see if we have any more questions and answers that we want to do. Oh, and Miranda just popped in the PowerPoint into the chat, so y'all can go there and download it. Any feedback, any questions, anything that I can help with? For someone who has high blood pressure, is it good to drink Powerades, Gatorades a lot since they have quite a bit of sodium? So here's the thing about that. I had high blood pressure starting in the fall of 2018. I had a lot of stress going on. I was in graduate school working on my doctorate. And because of my heart condition, I had always had low blood pressure. So I was shocked that I went into the doctor thinking, because high blood pressure and low blood pressure can feel the same, honestly. We always say that high blood pressure is the silent killer. And I won't get on my soapbox about that, but it really isn't so silent because you do have symptoms with it. We just often don't realize that they're associated with high blood pressure. And so I have an entire talk, Latara, on cardiovascular health. I would love for you to go watch. It's one of my favorites to teach because it talks a lot about the myths associated with sodium consumption and high blood pressure. So it's the type of sodium that you're consuming. So table salt, salt that has been altered, that's going to really increase your blood pressure and not set you up for good cardiovascular health. When you're using things like Celtic sea salt and Himalayan pink salt, those are going to be better forms of sodium, and your body needs sodium. And so I would really suggest that you consider reaching out to your doctor, whoever's managing and prescribing your medication for high blood pressure. If you're on some medication, I would recommend reach out to them. Also think about our nutrition counseling that we have here. I am a certified health and life coach. But what I would recommend is reaching out and helping make some lifestyle and diet modifications. It took me 3 years, but I was able to make some changes to be able to wean off my blood pressure, medically supervised, of course. And that's really hard to do. It's one of the things I'm most proud about because I know from a medical perspective how hard it is to manage high blood pressure. And there are some genetic factors, but there's also a lot of lifestyle factors because some of us are just more sensitive to carbs. Some of us are just more sensitive to sodium or to other things that increase our blood pressure. So we're all very different and we all have very different needs. So I would say try an electrolyte drink like LMNT or some others that you can find without caffeine and without added sugars and preservatives and see if that works. I personally have never felt great after drinking a Gatorade or a Powerade. It just, my blood sugar in my body just don't respond well to that. And there are definitely healthier options, but absolutely, you sometimes need more than just water. Even something like taking water and adding a pinch of Celtic sea salt in there, that's something that you could do. You could just go grab a bag at Target today and just put a pinch in your water, and that's going to help get that water into your cells where it can be used. Teresa says, awesome info. Thank you. I've pledged to drink 80 ounces of water a day for the next 2.5 weeks. It isn't as hard as I thought it would be. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Latara. I'm glad that that was helpful. And reach out if you have other questions. Again, I want to make sure that we're just, giving good educational advice, not medical advice here, but I don't mind sharing my experiences and what's worked for me. Any other questions or feedback, comments? Thank y'all. When is the cardiovascular course? We are working on the schedule for the fall, and that will be coming out shortly. But I have an archived talk that is already on the wellness.ua.edu site. If you go to that site and then click archived webinars, there's a recorded session there. And I update it from time to time, but it can give you all the good information that you need, Latara. And reach out if you have questions after you watch that. I'll be happy to answer. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Miranda. Miranda's working hard behind the scenes. She just linked the talk for y'all. Any other questions, comments, feedback? I see someone raise their hand. You're welcome to put it in the chat if you have a question. I'm not sure if y'all can unmute, so you're welcome to put it in the chat or the Q&A if you'd like. There's an anonymous option in the Q&A if y'all want to ask questions that way. All right. Well, I want to be really respectful of your time. We appreciate you for joining us today. I hope that this was helpful. I know something like hydration can, honestly, the simpler the topic, sometimes the harder it is to teach because you really want to give a lot of value and a lot of good tips and advice and practical things that you can do to improve something like hydration. But don't ever underestimate the power of just adding in a glass of water. It can make a huge difference in how you feel. It even can help your mental health, because if our brain is dehydrated, we're not going to be happy. It's just hard to be happy when we're dehydrated and our body's having to work really hard. So I hope this was helpful to you. If you have other things that you think would be helpful to add in, or other recommendations or feedback, please always feel free to reach out to me, or you can reach out to Miranda. We're always happy to hear that. If you have other suggestions for classes that you think would be needed and helpful, please let us know. And yes, Michael, we'll get you taken care of. All right. Thank y'all so much for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Stay cool and stay hydrated. Bye, y'all.